We've continued with this technique so far, and now our design has reached this stage. Now we'll move on to the fine details that actually add volume and dimension to the piece and make it look more lifelike. We're now working on the areas that need to be darker with more detail and precision. To make them darker. And for the parts that need very, very subtle shading, we'll start working with the side of the brush. But one important thing you should keep in mind is that when you want to use the side of the brush for very subtle shading on the bird's feathers, or any other subject for that matter, test your brush on paper first. Make sure the amount of paint is just enough so that with a bit of pressure, it only leaves a slight tint on the paper or fabric. Rather than applying pure, heavy color to the piece, essentially, we just need to take the edge off the white of the fabric and remove that plainness. Now let's test it on our fabric. You'll see, we'll start on a section that's meant to be a bit darker, so if there's too much paint on the brush, it won't ruin the piece and can be covered by darker tones later. Look here, I'm gently rotating the side of the brush in a circular motion over the piece to add the desired depth. This isn't a very dark shade, it's actually a very subtle shadow. It doesn't have that fuzzy texture or those flickin' strokes, really. It's just slightly altering the color without adding any specific shape or texture to the piece. And where needed, we repeat this process layer by layer until it gets a bit darker. You see, we want these areas to lose some of that whiteness, but we don't want any very distinct or sharp lines. With this technique, or just toning down that pure light wherever it's needed. Now, we'll start again on these areas where we've created a subtle shadow. We're currently working on those lines that kind of look like fuzz and hair. You know, the ones that seem a bit messy or fuzzy. This really helps us create the darker areas in our drawing. But not just by using the hair technique and those flicked lines. This allows us to bring out that realistic texture in the light and dark areas. In places where the volume and density of this fuzzy material need to be increased, you can simply layer the work repeatedly using that same method. If some parts are darker, they'll stand out more. And it shows the dimension and volume better, especially in places where the feathers overlap. You don't necessarily have to replicate the model exactly. Sometimes you choose a model, but you want to do the shading and coloring according to your own taste. And change it. Give yourself the freedom to make these changes, and this will help you. With your creativity and your ability to execute designs and patterns purely from your imagination. For the lines that need to be darker, we layer the color over them again, coloring and hatching until the dark areas are sufficient.